Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Cringy Movie Collection Podcast, which is the podcast where we cringe for movies. And I'm not
we
alone.
are gonna be cringing today, and it's my fault.
Oh, a new feeling.
Yeah, it's the first time that I feel not so good about a movie that I brought to the podcast.
What's the movie?
The movie is Manhattan, directed by and performed by Woody Allen from
The movie is performed by Woody Allen?
Yeah.
He just performs the movie?
Yes, he performs the movie.
Okay.
Woody Allen wrote, directed, and starred in the movie.
From 1979.
Yes, so we are still in the 70s. It's back Ludovica's time.
I like that you're saying we're still in the 70s. It's back. Like, which one is it? Are the 70s
we're
back, or are we
to
still in them?
Ludovica's time, and we're still in the 70s.
You're a big fan of Woody Allen, so it makes sense that in your collection there would be Woody Allen movies.
I was a big fan of Woody Allen, and this is the first movie that really stayed in my adolescence because when I grew up and I started getting into movies, then I discovered Woody Allen, and I liked it for two particular reasons that we are gonna discuss later, and they are common to most of Woody Allen movies.
It's circumcision.
Yes, because it's Jewish. Now there are so many Jewish people in Hollywood that it's really like you don't have to go dig very deep. No, it's just so I thought that it was very cool, and then I discovered. I know that I say that if people get cancelled, their art should still be able. You should still be able to enjoy their art. But I felt a little bit weird, and I kind of abandoned. I didn't rewatch many of his movies, actually none at all. After Midnight in Paris, I was like, I think.
Really?
I think I went to see Midnight in Paris, and then we watched Try It Again, Sam together, and then that's it. Like that's the most recent viewings.
Midnight in Paris is like the one Woody Allen movie that I've seen that I was like, that was a nice experience, except that it like wastes Rachel McAdams. But other than that, it's a lovely movie.
Well, I discovered Woody Allen because Scoop came out when I wasn't the right age to watch his movies.
Yeah.
And I really like Scoop. I think Scoop is a good movie.
I know that I've seen Scoop. That's all I can say about that movie.
It's just that, like it felt that things were getting tainted a little bit. And so when I picked this, because it was a big part of my adolescence, film enjoying, me discovering like Woody Allen in this kind of movies, I was actually really, really looking forward to it because it's been a long while. And it was not received by me in the same way that it was received by 16-year-old me.
We'll talk about it, but
Yeah.
first, can you give me a quick 3-sentence summary of what happens in this movie?
So Isaac, that is Woody Allen character, is a TV writer in New York. He's 42. He's divorced.
He's the worst?
Divorced 2 times. He's having a romantic relationship with an underage person, and he has friends, and they're all intellectuals. And he meets Diane Keaton, that is having an affair with his married friend, and they kind of have a bit of a relationship as well. And then the movie ends basically, and like everybody's kind of sad. But it's like there is not really a plot of this movie. It's just people living in New York in these intellectual circles.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of stuff happens, but nothing is accomplished.
Yeah.
We could ask, what's the point of this movie? And I think what ties in with it is this idea that these characters try to make better decisions, but they really all end up in where they began.
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily unrealistic. Like people,
No.
like it depicts kind of like a real slice of life where like you in this, like this, because this is a romantic comedy, particularly in relationships, you make certain decisions and you regret them like a year later, and you go back and you try to relive those experiences. And
Well, this is what brought me to these kind of movies. I really like just sit there for 90 minutes and see people living their life.
yeah,
And it doesn't have to be that there is a big arc, like a big story arc, and it doesn't have that there is a clear ending or something is necessarily accomplished. And I think that there is something to say about these movies, because I don't know about it in the 70s, but now there are a lot of like reality TV shows. I think that I'm way happier seeing a movie like that like this. That is like you watch people living their life for 1.5 hours, but you know it's scripted. Instead of like pretending that the people that are in the reality TV show are not scripted.
yeah.
And
Well, I obviously don't have anything good to say for reality TV, but also I don't think that is an apt like it's not a reasonable comparison, because this movie surely is trying to make a point. It's not just we put the camera in the corner and it's not sensationalist. That is what reality TV does. But anyway, again, let's get away from reality. There's nothing about there's not a reasonable comparison.
I don't know. I think that there is like a curiosity of people of seeing people living their lives.
Right. But this movie isn't about showing you anything real. It's about like fiction that depicts reality, which is what a lot of fiction does. And it's supposed to like do that. Like we like superhero stories, but at the core of that usually are real like dilemmas and real, like we talked about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, for example, which is about, it's an animated movie about spider people, but it has at its core this kind of coming of age story of a child that, like has idols and doesn't really believe in himself and like learning to to stand up for himself.
I think that I like that these people are not special at all.
Yeah.
They don't have any mission.
Right.
They're just trying to survive and make decisions.
Right.
They try to like have a character development. They just try in a very realistic way. Like we don't have a character development like we usually have in movies in life.
I don't know about that, because just because the character ends up trying to reconstruct something that was lost at the beginning of the movie, like specifically Isaac is with Tracy and then he dumps her, he gets with Mary and she kind of dumps him, and so he wants to get back with Tracy because he kind of realizes that was a more real thing in his life. Like that can be construed as growth. I mean, it can also be considered like a stagnation kind of thing, but I don't think so. I think, like Woody Allen's character here is kind of like learning something that he didn't see at the time, which is, I think, relatable.
Yes, I think that I like that the character development here is very subdued compared to other movies in which he has to be more extreme, but it's more lifelike because you take baby steps.
So what did you learn from this? What do you take away from this as what is the appeal of this movie, basically? If you're just like looking at people doing nothing, like if this is how you think about the movie, which I disagree with fundamentally, what is going on? What's the point?
It's like changing perspectives, kind of. Now I am this person that lives in Zurich and has a cat and a boyfriend and her values, and let's just try to be in this world with intellectual New Yorkers in the 70s and see what is their like point of view of life.
Okay.
And then I can see, hey, I'm pretty happy where I am.
Okay.
or hey, I would like to try and go to the theater more. I don't know. It's like just...
Right. I mean, this obviously also, as far as like depicting reality, it feels scripted in some places, and it feels really real in other places, which is interesting. We should talk about Woody Allen, the writer, which is really what, like it's probably the appeal of a movie like this, is that's like written, directed, and starring Woody Allen, and like that's such a a big star at the time as well.
I think that he is very funny. I also think that he is the first person that I've seen doing self-deprecating comedy. He's very ironic about himself, even though then he has this moment in which he jokes about his sex appeal, and it seems that he really believes it, even though we all know that we are laughing at the fact that he's not incredibly attractive. But you kind of like think, this is not a self-deprecating joke. I think he really thinks he's incredibly attractive, or he's just trying to make me think that he thinks he's incredibly attractive. I don't know. There is, it's not incredibly clear. There is this like idea of confusion, and I actually think that behind the writer is very good at physical comedy. Like he looks very funny, walks funnily, and every time that he interacts with objects, it does it in a very funny way.
I think it's okay. Well, all I can think of is that stupid prep scene from Try It Again Sam, where he's like freaking out in front of a mirror, and it's actually annoying. I'm sure some people love that.
I like this.
But that's not this movie. Manhattan,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, like this movie isn't particularly like, you know, like it doesn't have a lot of that kind of slapsticky stuff. It's very quiet, you know.
Yep.
He does point out the brownness of the water constantly, which I think is a funny kind of repetition of a gag. But then, you know, you have particularly the scenes with Tracy, played by Mariel Hemingway. Well, we talked about it with The Office, where like The Office is funny, but it's also sincere, and this is actually in those scenes, it's just like sincerity, and then, you know, like there's a certain horror in what Woody Allen's character does, which is like he keeps basically staying in this relationship with a girl, and he like just decides that this is not going anywhere, so he'll do it for as long as she wants to. But he, you know, like what a shitty way of like being with someone.
And this is what I absolutely hated about this movie is the pedophilia. Like this girl is 17 and he is 42. Yeah. And I think that this has also made me realize that yes, we need to have strong laws, because when I watched this movie at 16, 15, I didn't thought that it was such a big deal because Tracy was aware of what she was doing. No, she was not aware of what she was doing. Like children have to be protected because when you're 16 and you think, to make a more like lifelike example, like maybe there was like some classmates of mine and like she was going out with a 26-year-old and you just think, oh yeah, it's so cool, it's like 26 or 30, like they're so grown up, and you think you know what you're doing. You have no idea what you're doing. You just think you know. And every time like that Tracy was on screen, I was like thinking, how could I thought that this was acceptable? And actually, like none of the reviews from the 7 thing mentioned that this was messed up. It was like, oh yes, a romantic comedy. It's like, this is messed up.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I think you can make a movie like this without it being messed up. Because you can question how important the number 18 or 21 or whatever is, right? Like, there's an evolution of maturity, and for any individual, that number might mean nothing, right? I don't necessarily think that that's what this movie does. It plays the age more as a plot point, basically. Yeah. It's the reason why Isaac isn't really in this relationship for real. And obviously there's a joke here and there about it, but like...
But she could have been 19 and it would make the same point.
If she came across as very mature, which in places she does, but not... Maybe not. Maybe it needs to be played more if this is the point of the movie, which it isn't, right? You know, like, so I think in theory, this isn't this is not a topic you're not allowed to touch on or question the validity of these rules, because really what it is out of principle you don't do what this guy does, not because Tracy specifically is a child. You know what I mean? It's interesting that they cast an actress who's noticeably taller than Woody Allen.
Everybody's noticeably taller than Woody Allen.
Like, it's not someone who really looks like a child. The actress is 18 at the time. And if they didn't keep saying that she's 17 and going to high school, like the fact that they keep pointing that out does make it more significant, almost like the movie is about that. But then I don't know if it has anything reasonable to say about it. That's the question.
Every time that there was a scene in which it implied that there was like sexual intercourse happened between Isaac and Tracy, I felt so uncomfortable. I felt like very, very uncomfortable. Do you think it feels more uncomfortable because it is Woody Allen?
It's probably aged like milk, like this kind of thing. Look, so one of the things that we've done before on the podcast, we've talked about people who allegedly did bad things and all that. And I'm not interested in going into the allegations in detail or anything. But obviously, in this context, we have to say Woody Allen has, since this movie came out, been accused of having done pedophilic things. Whether or not that's actually happened, whatever, I'm not going into it. But that's the kind of context in which now this movie is viewed.
We now have this information in our mind that when we watch him.
And so then suddenly you gotta go, oh, it makes sense. This movie suddenly makes sense, like this is why he would do something like that. It's like I can watch that movie without thinking about that. Like to me, Woody Allen isn't just the guy who supposedly did something to a child, As far as I know, there's no conviction or anything like that. So it's fine, like whatever. But it seems significant in this context all of a sudden, right?
Yeah, and this is maybe why I felt like that it was more icky. So yeah, what did you absolutely hate about this movie?
So it ties in with the cinematography, which is generally quite nice. We should point out this is a black and white movie. It's shot beautifully, but there are some sections, particularly outside, where, they're just walking in the shadows and you can see nothing. You can see the background, basically. And maybe there's a stylistic point about it, but like there are some moments when you're just like waiting for them to step back into the light, which they eventually do, which again, if I close read that sequence, maybe I would go like, because they're talking about not knowing what to do and then they're stepping into the light, whatever. But really in the moment when I watched it, I just hated it. I was just like, this is shitty, especially considering how beautiful the movie looks otherwise.
Yeah, and this is what I absolutely love about this movie is that it just looks cool. It's nice to look at. I like the lighting. I think that it's...
So the exact opposite of me.
No, well, I did like that there were some scenes with very sharp lighting when there was more like... I don't know, I should like maybe rewatch it and take notes of all the scenes with the sharp lighting and what happens. But it felt to me that it was when like the conversation was getting more real and less about like just them talking their intellectual nonsense. And I like the fact that the camera is set in a point and then they live their life, especially in the interiors. And you see them going in and out of the frame and the camera doesn't really follow them. I thought that, and I still think about it, it's like, this is such a cool way of shooting a movie. I have never seen a movie shot like this before.
This feels a lot like, and a lot about this movie feels like it's from the 30s and 40s. Like, this is how films used to be made. Like, because like there wasn't really action per se. It was more like the moving image. It was like people moving through the frame, and like you had all these scenes of people talking, and to make it interesting, they were doing things, And this feels very much in that tradition. I mean, the choice of making it black and white ties into that. It feels a lot like something maybe from the early 40s, late 30s.
Yeah, but before I haven't seen movies from the 40s and stuff. I still haven't like seen a lot of it. It felt new to me at the time when I saw this movie. And I also like that even when they don't do this, in most scene, the person that talks and is the focus of the scene is off center, it's like at the side of the frame. And I just like to watch how this movie is made and that the people are not at the center of the movie. A part of it may be more intentionally made because the movie is named Manhattan, and so the city should like probably is also more at the center, like in many like scenes in which they are outside, they are off center because there is a beautiful view of the city that is in the center of the frame. It's just interesting. It's different from what we usually see in movies, especially nowadays.
There's a lot of sustained takes as well, which gives it a theatrical quality, like the idea that we don't edit between, like, you know, like someone's just performing this script, so kind of like a stage play. And then we have long movements of the camera, often handheld. It seems like, you know, steady cam. So like it flows nice, but it's like someone walking through the streets and stuff like that. There's a long scene at the end where he runs through New York, and there's cars in the foreground, and the camera just follows him as he runs. And he gets out of breath very quickly and all that. It's silly as well, but it's like, it's very just striking from that perspective. I just don't like some of the lighting because it's in the tradition of like a film noir. It's like, it's very strange to have that style put into what is really about relationships, like romantic comedy, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I just like the style. And so, yeah, let's put it everywhere. Yeah. Let's do it. There is, I think that also one of my favorite scenes is there is the married couple that is friends with Isaac. They are coming back to New York in a car. And you just hear them talking and you see the car, but you don't even see like their heads or something. Yeah. And it feels like the camera is in the car behind them, just following them.
Okay.
And I don't know. I just thought, that's cool. I like it.
I thought that was almost like, maybe there was a problem with that scene, so they did it this way. Like they couldn't get it in one take, or like they couldn't get the set that day or whatever. So like they were like, well, we'll just record the audio and we'll put it over footage of it. Like, I don't know, that I wasn't all that impressed with that.
I don't know. I just...
But maybe that was, it could be intentional. Like it could have been scripted exactly like that. I don't know, but I don't particularly...
I think that it adds to the cozy quality of this movie.
There is a lot made about kind of like sophisticated people in this. There's like these discussions, especially at the beginning of the movie, that Woody Allen has with Diane Keaton in particular, but also in other places, where they just like, they try to impress each other with their knowledge of art and culture and things like that. And it's an interesting kind of, because the movie is called Manhattan, and it's like, like Woody Allen goes and he portrays New York the way that he sees it. The way he seems to portray people that are in New York, that aren't even necessarily New Yorkers, but people that move there. He portrays them as these like kind of vain, superficial, like, people that want to talk about the thing, like, like all these people have like enormous problems in their lives, but they don't want to talk about those. They want to talk about which, the metal cube at the entrance of the museum, and whether or not they like that. And it's, like it's ridiculing of the kind of people that live in Manhattan, which almost seems weird considering how much in love he is with the architecture of it and all. Like, which that's also a very superficial thing to like about the place. It's like, if you don't like the people, or maybe he does like this kind of pompous intellectuality, but like...
I think that, and this is also what probably drew me to the movie, because I'm a very arrogant person, that in this way you can make fun of intellectual, but still retaining the idea that you are an intellectual, and you're making fun of like the wrong kind of intellectuals. And you're the right, like the truthful, the real intellectual kind. Mm-hmm. And now I'm over it. Like, I don't want to be an intellectual. I don't want to be a real type of anything. I just want to be me. But at the time was, like see all these like posers of fake intellectual that they didn't even know that like the metal cube was better than the plexiglass thing.
What I absolutely love about this movie is the music. It's another one of those elements that really makes it fit into this kind of 40s vibe, 30s, 40s vibe, because movies would be orchestrated that way. Now it's all like Gershwin's songs without lyrics. I think there's no actual singing.
No.
It really fits the general vibe of this movie. It's sometimes a little over the top. It's very noticeable, like, oh, now the orchestra comes back in. But like, it gives it this kind of musical quality almost. Like where, like, for example, like he's running through the streets and we don't need to hear the street sounds or the dialogue or anything. So we're just putting the knob to 11 and we just listen to the crazy music. And I think it works really well. I gotta say my favorite piece in the thing was the Mozart one of all. Like it's all written by Gershwin, but then there's one little bit where they go to a concert and they listen to Mozart. And it's like what, the 40th or something like that, like one of the symphonies anyway. And that was great fun.
Yeah, I really like the music. It also adds to the fact that it feels like you're watching a play or something. It's really theatrical in some kind of way.
Yeah.
It's more. It seems both that you are just entering the house of somebody and just watching them, but also you're watching a play in the theater.
And you can like, if someone says to you like Woody Allen wrote this, being inspired by Rhapsody in Blue, you can totally get that that's what's going on, like it definitely comes across. So that, that's nice. And I also think I just generally like that this movie is whimsical in a sense. Like it's a lot like an auteur movie. Like it's like some things that happen don't happen for a particularly obvious reason that you could be like, well, he's doing that because of that. But it's more like Woody Allen probably thought that would be cool if that happened, Which reminds me a lot of Louis C.K. Like if like this kind of eccentric guy making a movie, like give a lot of money to an eccentric guy, and this is the kind of movie you get.
Yeah, I think that
cool.
This is also why I picked this link instead of any old, because it feels that he has like less of a plot, even like if you can say it's more. It's really just like a nice thing to look at for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's that beautiful shot of them sitting under the bridge. Did you know that they had to actually like put benches there? Like there were no actual benches there. This was apparently like, I mean, it's nice for it to be such an iconic shot because they went through a lot of trouble making it, because apparently the lights on the bridge, they would just be turned off when the light comes up. And so Woody Allen like made a deal with the city and was like, leave the lights on, I'll tell you when we're done. But then that didn't really work out. And I guess you can see in the shot the lights going out at some point, like at least parts of them, which is like, that's unfortunate. But at the same time, I guess,
it's real.
It's still, no, but it's like, it's still an iconic shot. Yeah. So like it didn't stand or fall with the question of whether or not the lights are on.
It's really like, it's an art poster. You can totally take the shot. It's beautiful.
It's very pretty. What do you think happens after, we see the end? Like,
so just to recap the end, Tracy, Woody Allen, like Isaac runs a lot hours to see Tracy, and she is about to leave for London to go for 6 months to study theater there, as it was set up already during the movie. And Tracy is if we really love each other, 6 months is not a lot of time, and we're gonna.
But to be clear, they're broken up.
Yes.
And Woody Allen basically asked her to take him back.
Yes, and like he does it very badly, because she basically said, do not go now that you're leaving for the airport. Do not go and stay with me. Tracy, that is very both mature and naive in a very sweet way, is like, well, you said you love me, you care about me. So if we really love and care about each other, 6 months is not a long time, and we're gonna meet again.
Right. And Woody Allen is a little bit more concerned that that whatever he likes about her, she will lose it over the next 6 months.
It's very egoistical, because he just wants to keep her this way, not because he thinks it's like her like best self for herself, but it's her best self for him, and this is what's wrong about it. I think that he's not gonna stick with Tracy. Like he's not gonna wait for Tracy for 6 months.
Well, do you think she's leaving?
Yes, I think she's leaving.
Yeah, okay.
I think that like Tracy is pretty level-headed.
Yeah.
So
she's also no longer a child.
Yeah, she's legal now.
She's 18 at that time.
What could be also one of the points about this movie is that Isaac realizes that his best relationship was with Tracy, and Tracy is like a genuine person. It's a nice person, and she's not as like flashy as this intellectual that he used to date, but that was the real thing. Like, she's a real person.
Yeah.
But I think he's gonna get distracted by the lure of having one of these cerebral person next to him, because this is what he likes to picture himself with.
Yeah.
And I hope for Tracy that she's gonna realize that she can do better.
I also think that right before this scene, when he talks about, like, he's kind of taking notes for his book, I guess, and he's talking about what things would make him happy, and he says Tracy's
things
face.
worth living for.
Okay, so then he says Tracy's face. It feels like the writer in him is saying that. It's like a romantic thing to say there. It's not. It comes out of nowhere. Like, it's just like, because earlier he refers to breaking up with Tracy as, like giving away a good bet. Like it seems to him like a calculated thing. He's not good for Tracy, basically. Like, regardless of the age difference, like the way that he thinks of their connection that they have is like, it's not a valuable thing.
Yeah, but I think that scene actually makes sense because it feels like he's psychoanalyzing. It's like self-therapy, because he's like on a couch talking, and he's like, oh yes, life is worth living, and he starts with the intellectual stuff. This is why life is worth living, because there are all these like obscure artists and less obscure artists, but this is why it's worth living because of the pairs in Cézanne. And then you just what happens in some therapies is just they let you talk long enough without interruption so that you get to the real things. And then when he has finished his list of intellectual, pretentious things to say that this is why life should be worth living, he gets to what is life is really worth living.
My point is that, like, from like some kind of narrative perspective, that's what he thinks would be good for him. But like, when then he actually talks to Tracy, he has nothing to say to her of meaningful, like nothing meaningful to say to her, which means that he just likes the idea of having a girlfriend, like, basically. Like, he just liked being with Tracy because I guess she was pretty, because he's talking about her face. Like, he's talking about something that he likes about her, but he also thinks that if she just walks around for 6 months, it will just go away. You're living in this weird, like, constructed world, and you're not listening to your actual feelings, which might be you hurt and you should just be in pain for a while.
Yeah.
And maybe that's how you get over it. I also think the movie could just end when he says Tracy's face, and we stop there. Because, like, in the scene before, he says that he wouldn't, go contact her, and I think that's the right thing. Like, you don't break up with someone and then go like, oh, sorry, I was wrong. So, like, it's strange that we get that part, and it kind of shines a bad light on Woody Allen's character, because he's just like you said, he's just very selfish. He just wants, not even necessarily for them to be happy, but like whatever makes him feel good in that moment. So he just walks over there and tries to interrupt her like 6-month plan. Like, fuck you. So I hope she gives him the finger and gets in that cab and gets to London and is happy there. If we talk about kind of the problem that Isaac has specifically, which is he is unable to move on, right? He keeps talking about his ex writing a book about, like, and then like, he breaks up with people and wants them back and this shit, like, Tracy deliberately tries to get him out of that when she gives him a harmonica, and she explains that she wants, like, Isaac always supposedly says, like, he would like to learn an instrument or whatever, and like, she's like, don't just talk about it. I want you to, like, step out of that and actually start doing things. And here is the first step to that. Like, she's very a positive influence on him, but like, I feel like it's wasted on this guy, basically.
Aww.
Like, if she was this kind of influence on someone who would appreciate that and would actually grow through that, because he just puts the harmonica away and breaks up with her. Like, he later finds it and goes like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel that for a very long time in my life, I was very much like Isaac, especially in the, like, thinking, oh, I want to do this and this and that, and not being able, like, to start things.
Well, we all have that. That's a very relatable experience, isn't it?
Yeah, and
This
also
idea
in the
that
fact that you keep like reliving your past, and like for example in my case it's not like about relationship, but I just kept reliving my past, and this is also like in a lot of Woody Allen movies there is like the point that everybody goes to a psychoanalyst, and I think that this is also what like why I don't like regular psychotherapy is just so you just keep like revisiting your past and not decide what to do now. And it's I like I like that I have like outgrown this part in which I identify with characters like Isaac, and I just say, hey, let's try to live life now, but I'm not very good at it.
But the element of hope would be that in contrast to the characters in this movie, we can use past experiences to learn from. Like, we can look back at a relationship that didn't go well and think that still hurts me today. And it doesn't mean I have to go back and try to be with that person now. I can accept that this is not an option, basically. This is not the world we live in. But I can take that with me, and it changes me as a person. And hopefully in future relationships, I become better at recognizing the things that I value in a person, or I can avoid making the same mistakes. Like, we don't have to look at a movie like this and think it's a depiction of reality. We can look at it and say that's an extreme version of what we do, but we can be better than that. This is a movie from your childhood, and we've finally gotten to the point where like you watch a movie now and you go like, actually, I don't like this all that much. Obviously, that's my experience with half of the movies in this collection. This is the point of the podcast where we review normally movies, DVDs from my youth, and a lot of them are like Michael Bay movies.
Yeah, they look back at them and you cringe. This is the point of the podcast.
Like the sophisticated New Yorkers would not be impressed with this collection. So how do you feel outgrowing some of your kind of childhood favorites?
I'm happy, because I can still say I like the looks of this movie, and I can try and go and find. I think I want to watch some of these Bergman movies. Like I haven't watched any of them.
Incidentally, big noir director, and those movies look exactly like this. I mean, it's not a coincidence. Oh, it's interesting because I think a lot of people actually think that this is Woody Allen's best movie. You know, this is not a bad movie. It's not like Pearl Harbor. It's like if I don't have to be embarrassed to like this, So like at least when you outgrow the movies, like they're still pretty good movies. So
yeah, I think that maybe there are worse movies that I haven't outgrown. Like there could be You've Got Mail in this collection. I still think it's a great movie.
Really
I haven't outgrown cheesy romantic comedy, and I'm not afraid to admit it.
In the next episode, which will be in 2 weeks, we're going to go back to movies from my collection. And it will be a Sam Raimi movie. It will be Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire.
Oh, I actually already watched this movie, so
we're going to watch it again. Get ready for some cry face. Is there a lot it's mostly Spider-Man 2 with cry face, but there's definitely cry face in the first one as well.
Yes, because Uncle Ben dies.
Oh my God, spoilers. Quick,
yeah, I'm
bail.
sorry.
Get out of here.
Okay, bye.